Good morning. It's Saturday, March 8th. And this morning I want to talk about something that goes on in this country constantly. It's about unemployment. Now, the so-called unemployment rate is something like 3.7% now. And that's an official number that is thrown around by the Department of Labor and many other institutions that are supposedly paying attention to unemployment rates. But that is a phony rate. It's not true. Unemployment in this country is much, much higher than that. Probably somewhere in the 8 to 10% rate. That phony rate is set up by a bunch of bogus rules, like you need to have applied for a job within 4 weeks or something. So if you haven't applied for a job, and there are other little incidents that do away with the measuring of the true unemployment figures. So the unemployment statistics are not true. While this number is below 5%, it isn't really so, because U.S. households have been hit on multiple fronts. The headline unemployment figure isn't just overly simplified, it distorts the number calculated on a flawed metric. It misleads the population to believing our situation is healthy. Individuals who have given up looking for work aren't counted as unemployed. And many part-time employees or freelancers who might only work a couple of hours a week, they're not counted as unemployed either. They're treated as employed. And there are millions of other people who are actually underemployed, meaning that their jobs pay poverty wages or don't make use of their ability. And then there are the people who are behind the curtain, individuals with some kind of physically disabilities or restrictions that prevent them from rejoining the workforce. So they're not counted in the stats either. And there are low-income families, Black and Latino. They are left out of the figures too when they're struggling in the weakening society social network, so-called. So we have to take a look. So let's start with so there are misconceptions out there that we must look at. The unemployment rate of 3.7% doesn't mean that 93% of the people are gainfully employed. And it doesn't represent how many people are collecting federal unemployment insurance either. A large percentage of people without job aren't even eligible to collect unemployment, because if you're an independent contractor, or you're an employee who quit voluntarily, or you were fired for cause, a lot of workers who do qualify for jobless benefit remain without work long after their aid runs out, which is usually 26 weeks, so they drop off the unemployment rate. So this unemployment data comes from the Census Bureau's current population survey, and that interviews about 60,000 eligible households each month. So the main figure, which is called the U3, that's the number of unemployed people as recorded as a percentage of the civilian labor force, is grossly understated. Individuals are classified as unemployed if and only if they meet the following criteria. They must be currently available work, and they must have looked for a job in the last 4 weeks. Now, how in the world can that be an accurate number? I've been unemployed plenty of time, and by plenty I mean 4 or 5, which is probably more than the average person, and I didn't necessarily find a job in 3 or 4 weeks. Because in many cases I really wasn't looking that hard. So if you can't find a job in 3 or 4 weeks and then that drops you off the roll, does that count as employed? No! It counts as a goddamn stupid miscalculation. So if you have an extremely low unemployment rate because you got a bunch of people who didn't think they'd be able to find jobs, that's not healthy for the labor market, but it also reduces the unemployment rate. And that is a discouraged labor market when people stop looking for work. And nearly 40% of the U.S. population isn't counted as part of the U.S. labor force at all. Because you've got workers with disabilities, you've got students, you've got retirees, you've got active duty military members and stay-at-home caregivers. And then there are people who are institutionalized and incarcerated. So they're not counted as part of the labor force. So that distorts the figures too. And bigger numbers go unreported. So the reality in this country is that we are not U3. We are more like U6. That makes the percentage between 6 and 8% of the population as unemployed. U6 counts the people who have given up working for a job. It also counts some people who are marginally attached workers. They don't work all the time, but they'd rather work. They would rather work full-time, but they don't get a full-time job. So they're in the U6 category. So the U6 rate tends to be around double the U3 rate. And that's according to the stats that were recently released. So the jobless in this country right now is between 6 and 7%, or possibly 8.5%. But even that figure is probably not 100% accurate, because we don't count the fact that people have bad jobs or they do insufficient part-time work. So a lot of people who should be counted in these unemployment figures aren't. And so we really do not have a true rate of unemployment. So they should really be considering people who are functionally unemployed if they work less than 35 hours a week, but want full-time employment, or if they make less than $20,000 a year. But I don't think this country is equipped to handle these statistics properly. I think we want to continue to go on showing this broad picture that makes this country seem much healthier than it actually is. So I don't expect us to get the truth about unemployment figures for a very, very long time. And there are so many other factors that are in the unemployment calculation that it's impossible to do this thing without having probably a class for 45 minutes and maybe 2 or 3 classes to understand all the pieces that go into this very important calculation. So I leave you with the truth. Unemployment calculations in this country are not accurate. We are not doing as well as the numbers that we are presented with would indicate. The underlying source of information is not complete, not accurate, and failing in representing the true picture of unemployment in the United States. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.